And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm joined by Rick Unger and filling out the panel, Congressman Blackburn and Amy Holmes. We are joined on the phone by famed attorney and Newsmax contributor Alan Dershowitz. Welcome to the show, Professor. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Your thoughts on what happened in Tennessee today?
Well, it's not surprising. I mean, ISIS clearly is determined to export terrorism to the United States, and the tragedy is, the victims are 4 Marines. Of course, this is not the first time our Marines have been killed by Muslim terrorists. Iran, our new best friend, brought about the death of so many Marines in the Hezbollah bombing many, many years ago. So this is nothing new. Our soldiers, our brave men and women, are targets, obviously, and so are our civilians for Muslim terrorism.
Alan, it's Rick Unger. I was listening to your answer, and there's something that I found fascinating in it. I wonder if you could speak to the psyche of Americans these days. You are not just a lawyer. You're the lawyer of lawyers. People like me, I look up to you as the lawyer of lawyers. And yet, you just right there accepted and assumed that this man, and you're probably right, by the way, but you assume that this man is a Muslim terrorist connected with ISIL, and that's still under investigation. I'm not saying you're wrong, because I suspect you're right, but does it say something about us when we go right to that without really knowing?
Well, let me tell you why not. He's dead, presumably. I suspect
Yes.
we can take that piece of news seriously, so he has no due process rights. He's not going to be put on trial. There's no presumption of innocence. This is simply now a historical event, and we can look at the evidence journalistically as we see it. Had he been captured and had he been brought in front of a judge and arraigned, I would have said something quite different.
I'm not speaking to his rights.
Because he's not the subject of a legal proceeding, I think we can talk like journalists.
No, I understand.
But evidence at this point points in that direction.
I'm not speaking to his rights. I'm speaking to, making conclusions based on incomplete data. That's what I'm really talking about.
Well, we always have incomplete data, and if we're wrong, we can change our mind. There's no major downside when nobody's on trial.
Right.
And I think we have to have a different approach when somebody is alive and awaiting trial, and when we're reporting on a past historical event. I think we can look at the best evidence as it now appears to point in that direction. I'd be happy to apologize if he turns out to be, a person of a different religion or somebody who didn't do it at all. But I doubt that that's going to be. I think we can premise our discussion on what we're seeing now, have that discussion, and then revisit it if it turns out to be wrong.
Right, Professor. It's unlikely that he was a Quaker named Mohammed born in Kuwait. My question to you, Professor, the Congresswoman, she brought this up in the earlier segment about surveillance and our intelligence agencies looking at social media, at Twitter, at Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. And a lot of civil libertarians get nervous about that. The big brother is watching what we're doing. But my question to you as a lawyer, as a professor, a lawyer of lawyers, is that isn't this public space? And certainly we have a national security interest, but I don't think you have privacy rights when you are tweeting threats about Chattanooga.
You're completely right. I tell my students all the time that what you put out there is not private, and therefore, as law students, you shouldn't be putting out thoughts or ideas or pictures that you don't want the world to see. As a lawyer, the first thing I do when I have a case is I hire somebody to go and find everything about my opponent or whoever is the witness on the other side, and I go to social networking, and there's nothing private about it. I don't intrude into people's private emails, but I do look at what they put out there publicly, and that's helped me win a couple of cases. And so I think we have to balance privacy interests. If you want it private, keep it private. If you want it to be sending it out there, or you want to send it just to friends, there are ways of sending it just to friends. But if you want everybody in the world to read it, then you can't say the government shouldn't read it.
Yeah, Professor, this is Marsha Blackburn. Tagging on to what Amy said, I thought it was really interesting. Before we started getting details, the FBI was already heading in there and taking charge of this investigation. That led me to think immediately, as we were getting those first reports, that they assumed or knew or feared something more than just a local occurrence.
I think that's right, but especially when our Marines are attacked, our soldiers, our sailors, our Marines, men and women who put their lives at risk for us, I think the FBI has a special function to perform. This is an attack on government people, and it's an attack on the United States of America. They didn't, as far as I can tell, he didn't pick these 4 people because he didn't like them personally. He picked them because of the uniform they were wearing, and that uniform is our uniform. It represents all of us, and the FBI certainly has an obligation to step in early and effectively when those kinds of crimes are committed.
Professor Dershowitz, the lawyer of lawyers, apparently your new title. We appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Just
Martha's
remember
Vineyard.
who gave you that name, Alan.
Right, Unger gave that to you. Credit where credit is due.
With appreciation. Thank you.
Sure. So, Congressman, what I've seen is a pattern, at least lately, that military people are being attacked. What I always thought would happen, and this is the nightmare of nightmares, and that's why I shop on Amazon. I don't even go to malls anymore, is that civilians will be taken out in large numbers in a place like the Mall of America or something. Instead, what's the message you think that they're going after military facilities? And we only have about 30 seconds.
I think this ties back into what we have seen regularly from radical Islamic extremists. They go after what they feel like are our icons, our centers of capitalism, our centers of security, things of that nature. And because of that, I think that's why the American people are saying we have to be watchful everywhere we go.
Diligence.
Don't forget the Boston
key.
bombing.
Right, that's right. Good point, Amy. Anyway, more on the shootings on the Daily Wrap. Big night tonight. Stay tuned.